right, guys, we're going to jump right into this because I think it's utterly important that we have this discussion. Iran just released a new missile called the Dancing Missile. And the reason why they name it that, that's not the official name that Iran has given it. But the reason why expert has given this new Dancing Missile that particular name is because it can maneuver in the air. And it's something that America, as well as Israel and other allies, didn't know that Iran had these capabilities. And we're trying to figure out whether they got this technology from China, from Russia, from North Korea, or that they developed this technology themselves. But we are also testing new missile systems ourselves. But did America underestimate Iran's capabilities? Did America have reports that Iran had over 500,000 missiles and drones still in their repository and hidden under ground bases and caverns as well? We were told that America was untouchable. And to a certain degree, we have already had at least 13 casualties, 150 people injured. We were told that the military, our military was unstoppable. But when you compare our military, me being a 20-year veteran, to the amount of soldiers, to the amount of military prowess that other large, countries have, like a China or a Russia, how unstoppable is the American government? Again, we continue as Western powers to underestimate other people. Okay. So I'm really trying to define and understand how this continues to be something that we overlook. Because how do you have the most expensive military in human history and we're still looking like we're losing control of the world in real time? And granted, we have to be very strategic about the way we go about this so we don't harm innocent people within Iran. Because what you're watching right now is not just a war. This is an exposure. And once power gets exposed, it never looks the same again. Because if you strip all the propaganda and you strip away your emotions off this particular thing, the United States military, we were built for a different era. We still, in some regards, are built like Cold War thinking, shock and awe, big ships, big bombs, big budgets. And our goal wasn't efficiency. Everybody else's goal is efficiency. Right now, China is surrounding Taiwan through the air to a certain degree because they're watching America and how we are responding to Iran. I'm pretty sure China thought we were going to bombard Iran and we'd be done in 72 to 96 hours, 3 to 4 days or so, but that's not the case. We're already in week 3. I think that initially the goal was intimidation, and it has not worked. Because we look at ourselves in the mirror, and we always say as Americans, look how powerful we are. We're the richest, most powerful country in the world. But when modern warfare doesn't care about our budget, modern warfare cares about speed, the ability to adapt, the cost efficiency and intelligence. But what about right now? Because that's exactly where the US is getting exposed. Unfortunately, we're getting exposed in some areas that we've overlooked for quite some time. Because we have a situation where the US interceptors, we've talked about this before, cost millions per missile. Iran's drones cost tens of thousands. That's not a fight, that's math. That's what defense analysts are calling asymmetric warfare. This isn't new either. Studies from places like the RAND corporations and Center for Strategic and International Studies, they have been warning for years that cheap drones versus expensive defense systems equal an unsustainable war model. Does America have enough fiat? Does America have enough money to continue to mass create, to mass construct these anti drone, missile systems to a point where Iran runs out or we run out? Because this is not a theory anymore. It's a reality. And I think we should go over the part that nobody, you know, in DC wants to say out loud. We cannot win a war where we're spending 4 million to stop a $20,000 drone, where our enemy is producing faster than we can intercept them. And now they just released an interceptor drone. I mean, they just released a what they called a dancing missile, because this particular missile that they release can maneuver in the air. We didn't know they had the capabilities. So are we still dealing in dominance? Because we're bleeding money in slow motion. Now, granted, um, was it last night? Because again, currently, I'm overseas right now. So I know there is in the morning, here is at night. But nevertheless, I was talking about how I was reading reports that gas could possibly rise to $200 per barrel. Okay. So a lot of the Western powers got together and released supposedly millions of barrels of oil to keep the gas prices at a minimum level so people continue, to use their vehicles. Okay. But there's been some reports tied to the Pentagon briefings, and a lot of the defense analysts have raised concerns about a lot of the interceptor shortages, and that how supply strains from Ukraine in the Middle East, because we've in some regards asked Ukraine for assistance. We've asked Ukraine for assistance. We've asked France for assistance. We've asked Spain for assistance. We've asked China for assistance, um, to send warships to the Strait of Hormuz. And majority of these countries have already said no. And then was it Prime Minister out of the UK, Starmer? He stated that because I know President Trump requested UN support, and it's been denied. See, this is not only an unpopular war. This is first and foremost, this is a war that majority of the American people did not want. Whether you follow the Republican Party or follow the Democratic Party, because now you have all sorts of politicians on both sides coming out stating that exact same thing. This is exactly what analysts warned about in journals about all these foreign wars, defense news, and how a lot of people that voted for Trump thought he was going to come in and basically be a no war president. And it's only been a year and 3 months, and we're in a full fledged war with Iran. And I know people are going to lose that because of our partnership, our strategic partnership with Israel. This is where it gets dangerous, because this war didn't stay in one region. Because the moment that America looked stretched, and that's the way we're looking right now, the world started moving. Do not forget that we moved the THAAD system from South Korea. So North Korea launches a ballistic missile. China has increased aircraft near Taiwan. Gulf instability disrupt energy flows, and allies hesitate to support the U.S. escalation. This is not a coincidence. This is opportunity detection. This is geopolitics 101, ladies and gentlemen. This is very, very simple. And then you have the Department of War Secretary Pete Hegseth worrying about headlines from the media, telling the media how they should word their headlines. Are we slowly turning into a communistic nation because we don't like the wording that our media is reporting on our administration? Here's the thing: whether you voted for Trump or not, first and foremost, we all should be America first, number one. Number two, when do we jump off the train? When do we start to criticize some of the actions that the president is doing? Whether you supporting him or not. Because again, we should want America to be powerful. We should want America to win. But are we in a war that we potentially can't win? Is this another Vietnam War? Because we, in some regards, we are a very dominant power. But we're really looking distracted right now. We are spread so thin. We're still supporting Ukraine. We're still supporting Israel. We made promises to Taiwan. We are recanting on promises that we made with South Korea by removing, anti-defense mechanisms from their country, and that's why North Korea doing exercises now. This has been written about for decades. This pattern is very simple, in my opinion, because power vacuums don't stay empty. And if we really want to talk about this chokehold that the world, especially the West, is going to feel, the Strait of Hormuz is one of the most important trade routes on this entire planet because roughly 20% of the global oil flows through it. And everybody knows this. And everybody knew that if war breaks out, Iran's Trump card is shutting it down. Because when they was asking Trump, they were like, Mr. President, when would this war be over? Originally, he said 3 or 4 days or a week. Now he doesn't know. This was never a mystery. Nobody knows when war will be over. Once you start a war, nobody knows when the war will be over. We can only speculate and base our decisions off of have intel from possible spies on the ground, from recon units, from Mossad and CIA agents that possibly are Iranian or who can blend in as Iranian and probably speak Farsi. And they don't have access to some of the top secret, sites in Iran. We went inside of this war half cocked. And I know everybody's going to blame Israel. Everybody's going to, Israel have influence in America. Israel did this. And, okay, we got it. When, as Americans, we're going to take responsibility that whether Israel had influence or not, we jumped in this war half cocked and unprepared. Are we going to win this war? Yes. But does anybody know what winning looks like? Well, when every strategic military target in Iran has been destroyed, that is when the war will be over. People would allude to that. When the Iranian regime gives up and announces defeat, that's when we'll win this war. What are we going to accomplish? Because this dancing missile that Iran has that can maneuver in the air, it can reach most of East Asian countries. I believe that um, the maximum effective range is what, 2,000 kilometers or something like that. See, in order to speak very transparent about this, because I know some people, regardless of what side they may take, people are just going to be Trumpsters and President Trump can't do no wrong. Presidents can do wrong. Obama did wrong. Biden did wrong. Carter did wrong. Reagan did wrong. Jimmy Carter did wrong. Lyndon B. Johnson did wrong. George Washington did wrong. All of these presidents are not perfect. So I don't know this cult-like following that people have. Because if you're telling me that this is America First agenda, if you're telling me that the things that President Trump first stated in his administration, that he has not contradicted himself, that he has not walked back. Well, things change when you're in office. When did when did Iran attack America? When did Iran prevent UN officials from coming in to check their possible nuclear enrichment sites of uranium? When has that happened? 20% of the world's oil goes through the Strait of Hormuz. And a lot of people are saying, what's going to happen from now when these oil reserves dry up or we stop the releasing of a lot of our oil reserves so we can have reserves? What's going to happen to gas prices? because all of these different energy markets, they are connected to oil. And here we are. President Trump is asking other countries to fix the problem that he put America in. I don't care what political affiliation you believe you belong to, the right, the left, the liberals, the conservative. Every American, in my opinion, should be pissed off at this. Because I'm hearing all sorts of expert, military, strategic expert, economists, historians. This is the real headline, ladies and gentlemen, because powers is not about weapons. Power is about who shows up when you call. And right now, nobody's showing up for America. Do you believe we've been making friends? Well, a lot of these countries been taking advantage of America. That could be true. I think a lot of Americans, I won't say most, but I say a lot, even myself to a certain degree, was on board with President Trump with the tariffs, was on board with President Trump in regards to deportation, not with the inhumane part of deportations that he could have quite frankly put in parameters, regulations to change the way that ICE was operating. Not stopping them from going into the inner cities and eradicating or giving Tom Homan, some guardrails and barriers, which he's have done now. They've implemented cameras on ICE. But right now, nobody's showing up for America. Countries like Japan, Germany, Australia, they have shown hesitation, and most of them has outright refusal to jump into a Hormuz escort mission. Even NATO, reluctant. Why? Because from their perspective, they didn't start this conflict. And the risks that we are now in are very, very massive. One missile equals full-scale war. And here's the uncomfortable truth, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of our alliances are weakened because the trust was already broken even before this war started. This has been documented for years. When you kind of look at some of the NATO policy papers on the transatlantic studies, we can't insult and bully our allies, impose astronomical tariffs, then tear up the agreements, and then expect automatic loyalty in a crisis. Yes, if he finds out that America wasn't given a fair deal, given a fair shake, that everybody was getting over on America, yeah, you should rewrite some of these deals. You should increase tariffs. But you're putting 50 and 60% tariffs on countries, 30% tariffs on countries. That's not how power works. Because if you zoom out for a second here, and what I believe what we're seeing is something, again, historians have seen before. It's called Imperial Overstretch. And this is a term that has been popularized by Paul Kennedy in The Rise and Fall of Great Powers. It describes what happens when a nation fights too many conflicts. We're all over the place. For quite some time, America has always been have always been labeled the world police. We've always been labeled the world police. And this is how most great empires fall. This is how the Romans fall. This is how the Romans fell. This is how uh, uh, the Genghis dynasties fell. Whether it be not the Genghis, but whether it be Genghis Khan or Kublai Khan, the Khan dynasty, the two brothers. This how they fell. They're fighting. They fought too many conflicts. They spend on too many resources, stretches beyond its capacity. I want you guys to think about it. We are in Ukraine from an economic standpoint. We're in the Middle East, whether it be with Iran, Iraq, Oman, Jordan, Cyprus, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain. The list goes on and on. And at some point, the system starts cracking, not because our country is weak, but because we're doing too much at once. This is this is for eons. I want you to look at all the great empires. If anybody knows an ounce about history, all empires fall because they eventually are spread to them. How did Hitler fall? How did Hitler fail? Because he was fighting a war on too many fronts. Nobody wants to hear it. They don't want to hear that. And here's another thing. If the Gulf destabilizes and the oil flow is disrupted and global confidence in the US control weakens, then the real target isn't just the military, it's economics, because the US economy is deeply tied to global trade stability, energy flow, and dollar dominance. And as I stated before, some economists, including voices like Jeffrey Sachs, which I've stated, he has warned for years that geopolitical instability could accelerate a shift away from US dominance. That's what a lot of these countries are doing. That's why they established the BRICS: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. That's not happening overnight. So the question is, what are we really watching? Not just the war, ladies and gentlemen, not just the conflict. This is a moment where, you know, military dominance is being questioned. A lot of our alliances and our friends are being tested, and economic stability is being shaken, and global power is being reevaluated. America didn't suddenly become weak, but the illusion of our invincibility, that took a hit. And once the world is looking at us, especially countries like China, countries like Russia, countries like North Korea, they're seeing this. They're start asking a very dangerous question. That's what they're asking. They're asking very, very dangerous questions. They're looking at us. And the question that they're asking, what happens if the empire can't manage all of these different fronts, all these different um, military operations economically that we're doing? They're learning. They're learning what America can tolerate. This is more like a stress test. Okay. Shout out to you, Vera Golden. I'm just calling you 3750. Let's go with that. Volvo, good morning to everyone. Yeah, we're up early this morning. I mean, it's late where I'm at right now, but I know that it's early there. But I just want to know your thoughts here. I don't see too many people chiming in on this, but I want to people to get out of this fear mongering mentality, because people are reporting and people are speculating of what's currently going on. Is because I don't think any rational American is supporting this. I don't think any rational American believe that this is good for our country. I want you to ask a friend, a aunt, a uncle, a sister, a brother, a mother, a father, a confidant, a partner, whoever it may be. Ask them, is this war affecting your day to day? And what I mean by that is, if it's not affecting them today, and let's say they are lower middle class, high middle class, this is not going to affect the rich for quite some time. I mean, those who are really rich. But those of us who possibly living paycheck to paycheck, grocery prices have been going up. No one has been talking about inflation. No one has been talking about the high rate of unemployment. And we are at a full-fledged war with Iran. Oh, um, not Libya, but Lebanon. We're fighting Hezbollah. We're fighting the entire country with Iran. But no one's talking about that. We're still supporting you, Ukraine. And here's the thing: we're asking Ukraine for assistance while we are paying them, giving them money. And then when we ask Ukraine for assistance, they say we need more money to assist you in your fight as we're still fighting Russia. And at the same time, China is moving aircraft carriers and flying jets around Taiwan. Taiwan is literally being surrounded. Are we going to assist Taiwan? We removed the THAAD system away from South Korea. We have multiple military bases in South Korea. I was stationed in South Korea for 4 years. I was stationed in Area 2. I was stationed in Area 1. I've been stationed in Area 4. See, I know a lot of times people who are not familiar with the American military as well as politics, they coincide with one another. They are joined at the hip. And I'll read people comments, and I don't really tie my emotions to this because um, some people can't help from having diarrhea from the mouth. But they say either condescending, or racist things because when I go to other countries, this is why I travel a lot. When I go to non-Western countries, majority of that country is 95, 98% of those people. We either be in Africa or Asia, okay? And as well, and the reason why I can't say South America, with the exception of like a Argentina, there's a lot of mixture there too. You're gonna find, people who are whiter, whiter than white. You're gonna have people my complexion because of the Spaniards in South America and Central America and all the raping and pillaging that they have done. But when you go to Asian countries and African countries, the majority of those countries are 90% of their countrymen. Guess what they don't have? They don't really have racism. They may have classism. So that doesn't mean get your money up, right? That doesn't mean get your money up. But Black people in America, Black Americans, foundational Black Americans, I want you to think about this. And people who are over in the UK, you can probably um, relate to this as well. They don't care if you're rich. They don't care how intelligent you sound. They don't care your educational pedigree. You can have like me, associate's degree, bachelor's degree, master's degree. You can have a PhD in rocket science. They automatically tie your intelligence, your status to your skin color. I want you guys to think about that. It's always in countries, mostly Western countries, that are multi-diverse. Now, UK Black folk are different than Black folk in America because we've been there since the inception of that country. Foundational Black Americans built the country. We've been there from the very beginning. That's very different than people who were brought over in the transatlantic slave trade who are now still immigrating to the UK from a lot of the African countries and some even from, Caribbean countries like Jamaica and Trinidad. So it's very, very different. But they will get online and somehow listen to perspectives with people with, experience, education, um, insider information, and still like, well, I don't believe you because you Black. You know, they said cocaine is a hell of a drug. Racism is a hell of a drug for you to think that. I never underestimate anyone based upon your religion, based upon your skin color. You're short, you're tall, you're fat, you're skinny, your breath stink, you smell good. It doesn't matter to me. Never, ever underestimate anyone. And that is the problem that America has. That is the problem that America has. We underestimate people. Because here's another thought I had. Is it possible that the reason why America and other Western countries underestimate other groups of people is because of subconscious racism that we think that other people are futile. We believe that other people are peasants because they're not white, because they're not Westerners, because they don't live in the UK or Europe or America. Do we believe that? Do we believe that people in the Middle East are less than, even though they have like the third of the world's oil? They're some of the richest people in the world. They have some of the best, accommodations, palaces. They live in a lavish life. Do we believe that? Are there any countries out there more technologically advanced than America? Yes. Yes. And guess where they got a lot of their technology from? America. They took the technology from America and they expanded throughout their entire country. I want you guys to look at when Obama was in office, he tried to expand high speed rail and he got stopped at every turn. Some of the first preliminary plans was to expand high speed rail from DC to New York to Miami to Dallas to Houston to Chicago to LA to San Fran. When you go over to Korea, high speed rail, Seoul to Busan, and some other places along the way. When you go over to Japan, high speed rail from Tokyo to Kyoto to Fuji, etc. When you go over to China, high speed rail from Beijing to Shanghai to Shenzhen to all these different countries. I mean, all these different cities in China. But when Obama tried to do, and granted, do I believe that Obama was a great president? He was okay. He was okay. Reagan, he was okay. There were some okay presidents. But here's the thing where people get their political affiliation mixed in with their emotions. Just because you didn't vote for that president does not mean that some of the things that that president was going to do was not going to benefit our nation. And in my opinion, when I travel the world and I'm in these countries and they have high speed rail, these trains, these high speed, bullet trains, they're going 250 miles per hour. I want you guys to really think about that. It's affordable, it's cheap, it's comfortable. They have business class, they have first class, they have coach. Because not everybody can afford to fly, and you don't. And then it's different. You don't have to go through TSA, but they stopped Obama from doing high speed rail. And then in certain countries like China, they're even advancing their high speed rail. They're not even on rail. They're using magnets, okay, where the train has a magnet underneath, so it's floating. And the underneath is not even a rail, it's flat and there's a magnet and they're just floating on top of it and they're increasing their speeds. When I tell you this, guys, and this is out of love for my country, when it comes to technology, America is behind. When I go to, especially in Asia, when I go to these Asian countries, they have all these futuristic cars, and people are like, oh man, that cheap Chinese junk, that cheap Korean junk. Where do you think majority of American products are made at? Good quality stuff. If you guys will look up electric vehicle cars like LI Auto, BYD, Zeekr, what else they have? Um, when it comes to Korea, of course, you guys are familiar with Kia and Hyundai and Genesis. When you look at these vehicles, not only are these vehicles $20,000 to $50,000 cheaper than American vehicles, they tend to look better. They tend to have better warranties. And here's another thing. Let me just say this. I wish that American car company still was a thing. I just a lot of these American car companies sold their companies to people overseas in Europe, sold their companies to places in China. They sold all the American car companies away. So people believe that all these cars have been made by Americans. No, they're not. Look at Chrysler. Look at Fiat. Not even being made by Americans in America. But on the surface, we're winning, right? That's what President Trump said. We're winning. And my thing is this: I want President Trump to win. I want America to win, because if the president is winning, like truly winning, then America is winning. Did I vote for Trump? No. Did I vote for Kamala Harris? No. But I did vote. My candidate just wasn't, you know, she wasn't the one. But I think that's where people get mixed up. I don't tie my emotions to my vote. I don't tie my emotions to what the president is and is not doing, but I will give an analytical breakdown of my perspective about it, because it's utterly important that American voices are being heard, and how America is falling behind. We used to be the technological giants. We are not anymore. I'm telling you, unfortunately, we are not anymore. We are the ones who made the color computer screen. We're the ones who made the first cell phone. When I first was stationed over in Korea, I can't really give you the day. I forgot. It's been quite some time. But when I was first stationed over there, Koreans were on the subway watching TV with long antennas outside their phone and with these huge speakers out the back. I was like, wow, look at their phones. And we still with the Sony Ericsson with the green backlit screen. They're watching TV on their phone. Unfortunately, America is behind. Now let's see what this person states here. It says if Trump is compromised by the e-files on other bad things he's done, that's another motive for the situation our country is in. B1. That's a really good point. A lot of people are still believing that this is a deflection. Um, it could be both. Okay, nothing is done in a vacuum. I believe there's always more than one reason of what's currently going on. It could be a distraction so people don't focus on President Trump's name 1,000 times in the Epstein files. And just because his name's in the files doesn't mean he has committed, any crimes or any wrongdoings. But there's still ongoing investigation, supposedly. But as Kash Patel would say, and some people believe that Kash Patel is in on it as well, that he's just lying. He was promised a high position to keep things at bay. He said there's nothing in the Epstein files. That's what Kash Patel stated. There's nothing in the Epstein files. But I don't want you guys to really, get hung up on this, because it's utterly important that we understand what the hell's going on in our country. And I think the next time that people vote, not to tell people, hey, vote for the Democrats. We live in a one-party system, and the Democrats just another wing of it, just another department, just another branch. But really look into what's going on in the world and how America is tied to this. We're tied to Ukraine. We're tied to Taiwan. We're tied to South Korea. We're tied to Pakistan. We're tied to some of the countries that are part of the BRICS. And I want you to think about this. Iran is not even near Israel. But have you noticed every time that Israel is in a conflict, I wish I had something to, like take for instance this, right? You got this card. So this is Israel. That's how big Israel is. And then after a conflict, that's how big Israel gets. That's all I got. That's all the props I got. But Israel all the time significantly becomes larger. Some reason somehow. Okay. But anyway, guys, I just want to chime in and kind of give you my perspective on that because again, as I'm traveling, um, I'm following this war that could quite possibly turn into a World War III. And a lot of people don't believe that we're on the edge of World War III, but what does World War III looks like? What does World War III looks like? When you look at World War One and World War II, there's two things that are, excuse me, there's one thing that's consistent. You have multiple countries in this war. Right now, we are basically going against Iran and Lebanon by the way of the entire country of Iran, the entire country of Iran, as well as Hezbollah of Lebanon. And here's another thing: is Hamas, the terrorist group out of Palestine, is Hamas going to help Hezbollah, or they're going to help Iran, or they're trying to? I'm trying to tell you, I think Hamas is going to come back into this because Israel is stretched thin too. Israel is stretched thin. That doesn't mean that they won't win. Because here's the thing: what I want people to understand. This is what I believe. Iran knows they're not going to win. Iran knows they're not going to win. It's almost like you're fighting someone that you know that you can't beat, but you like, I'm at least hurt him. He gonna walk away with a limp. He gonna have to get surgery. It's gonna be something similar to that part. When we look at this, ladies and gentlemen, we have to understand Iran knows that they can't win, but they're willing to go through whatever destruction that American and Israel is going to take them through. And here's another question. I'm not too familiar with the Quran. For any of you guys who are Muslim, you know your Quran, can you please help me with this? Either while I'm live or later when the video posted. Is there something in the Quran? Because I read it before, I believe. Is there something in the Quran that gives you a spiritual order to protect your brothers and sisters in cases like this, in conflicts like this? I thought I read something similar where you guys supposed to, again, correct me, I'm very ignorant about this. Okay. I tell you that to be true. I'm very ignorant, but I thought it was something that gives you guys a spiritual order to back your brothers and sisters in arms. Is that the reason why Iran is attacking Bahrain, is attacking Dubai, is attacking Qatar? Now, granted, they are attacking, or they're targeting, rather, they're targeting U.S. bases. They're targeting UK military um, FOBs, forward operating bases there on in these particular countries. But have we ever thought that is Saudi Arabia, because they've been attacked as well? A lot of those Middle Eastern countries have been attacked by Iran. Do they have some sort of spiritual duty to assist Iran? Are they going to do that? Has Iran secretly contacted any of these other Middle Eastern countries that are neutral and allies with America? And if you notice, guys, there's been a lot of there's been an uptick. Now, before this war broke out, there was a decrease of mass shootings in America. Did you guys know that? There was a decrease of mass shootings in America prior to this war occurring, prior to this conflict starting. There was a decrease. Now we have, I think in the past 2 or 3 weeks, we've had two mass shootings. And unfortunately, these two gentlemen have had Muslim names. One even wore a shirt that said property of Allah. while he was committing his terroristic act. Are all these things linked? I would like to believe so. Again, Americans will be at fault, regardless if we like it or not. We are the target. We're the blame. Because here's the thing. Did you know that some people don't vote, period, and other people get mad at them? The reason why some people don't vote is because they will tell you the reason why I don't vote, any decision that that president, any decision that that senator, any decision that that congressperson, that alderman, that city council person make, I'm tied to it. I know it's cowardly. That's what some people say, though. They don't want to make those, they don't want to vote and support that candidate because if they make a dumb decision and it affects thousands, if not millions of people, they'll feel responsible. That's some of the reasons why some people stated that they don't vote. Then other people would tell you if you don't vote, you don't have a voice. I'm like, we don't live in a democracy. Stop having these politicians lie to you that we live in a democracy. We live in a republic. Read the Constitution, study the Code of Conduct, understand the Geneva Convention, look at the Bill of Rights. All of these things mean something. Nevertheless, guys, you guys have a great and wonderful day. I thank you for joining me here. If you're new to Blacklogic, hit that thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button as well. Okay. But yeah, unfortunately, other countries like North Korea and China are looking at us and they're learning. Right now, we are an empire that is spread too thin, in my opinion. And our adversaries, people that we are indifferent with, are watching us. Not that they will attack. That doesn't mean they won't take advantage, though, especially of weaker people that we support, like a Taiwan, like a South Korea, who supposedly are our allies and friends, countries we've done business with. All the countries that President Trump so far have reached out to, Japan, Germany, to assist and send warships to the Strait of Hormuz to escort ore tankers through the Strait of Hormuz. All of them have denied and said no to President Trump. Was it the relations that is it the relations he didn't garner, he didn't foster while he was doing all these astronomical tariffs? And I wasn't against the tariffs. I was against the amount. I question like 30%. That's, well, how much were they getting from us? 7%? Okay, why not 8%? Why not 10%? 30%, 35%? Not only that wasn't good for business, have you noticed the things he did prior to this war wasn't even good for America? Look at the unemployment rate. Look at inflation. You guys have a good one.